الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, Allah has says in the Quran, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر إلى الملأ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي لهم ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله قال هل عسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال ألا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبناءنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليلا منهم والله عليم بالظالمين. Did you not see the leaders of the children of Israel after Moses, how they said unto a prophet whom they had, set up for us a king, and we will fight in Allah's way. He said, the prophet that is, would you then refrain from fighting if fighting were prescribed for you? They said, why should we not fight in Allah's way when we have been driven from our dwellings with our children? Yet when fighting was prescribed for them, they turned away, all save a few of them. Allah is aware of the oppressors. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the story of Talut and Jalut, or David versus Goliath. Not that David, Dawood alayhi salam, is Talut. Talut in the Bible is Saul, and in the Torah is Shaul. And the reason behind it is because a lot of people talking about it lately, and a lot of misconception about it, especially among the Muslims. It doesn't matter, we have a difference between us and the Jews and the Christians, some of them, regarding the story. But what's important is some of the Muslims are taking the people of the book, or some of the people of the book narratives. But before we get deep into the story, we have to go back a little bit, just in summary. How did the children of Israel got to that point, before that point, during the year where the Exodus took place, when Musa alayhi salam got out of Egypt, and that was around the year 1290 BC. When he ran away with the Israelites from Egypt. And they were in the Sinai desert, but obviously they did not stay there, and it took them a few years to reach to the eastern side of the Jordan River, where they were planning to go to the Holy Land. And when they arrived there, and Musa alayhi salam told them to enter the Holy Land that Allah had prescribed for you, they refused to enter it because they said, "Inna fiha qawman jabbarin," that there are people in there who are giants. Now in their book, they describe these giants as the Philistines. Now I'll explain into this later on, but the Philistines that they have in their definition is totally different than the Philistine that we have. Okay? The Philistines they're talking about is the Philistines that migrated from Crete and some other European countries, who migrated during the 1300 BC to come to Egypt and the land of Canaan. But at that time the land of Canaan was under the administrative rule of ancient Egypt, because they had a drought. And Ramses III at that time had asked them to stay in a town south of the land of Canaan called Palestine, and hence the term Palestinians. But we'll get to it toward the end. But they were not the Philistines, because these Philistines in their definitions were not giants. What they fought and what they saw are the remnants of the tribe of Ad, or what we call the Canaans. And some tafsir, on some history book, they call them Amalika, not because Amalika, the word in Arabic, means giants. It's also in reference to their grandfather, who's Amlik bin Lawid bin Iram bin Sam bin Nuh. And that's another evidence that the Canaans are from Semites and from Arab origins. So they refused to enter because they were afraid of these giants, of these Arabs. Except for two men, and they told them, if you enter, these giants will be afraid of you, and you will be victorious without any fight. They still refused because they were very scared, even including the 70 men during the Exodus in the Sinai desert, the 70 men that asked Musa alayhi salam that they want to see Allah. And he took them, and they did not only see the miracle, they experienced the miracle because they died and Allah brought them back to life. Even these 70 men refused the order and refused to help Musa to convince the Israelites to get to the holy city, except for another 2 men. So Musa alayhi salam made dua, and Allah responded, made dua, that he said, قال رب إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين. He said, Lord, surely I possess no authority on anyone except myself and my brother, so distinguish between us and the immoral people. So obviously from the way, because the Israelites told Musa, you go and your brother go and fight, and with your Lord go and enter the city. So they were very immoral to Musa alayhi salam when they said, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا, you go with your Lord and fight. Okay, so Musa alayhi salam made the dua, and obviously they showed a high level of cowardness, lack of loyalty, lack of discipline, and obviously very extremely weak-willed. And because of that, they were not qualified to develop a nation and to develop a society. And hence Allah said, فَإِنَّهَا مُحَرَّمَةٌ عَلَيْهِمْ 40 سَنَةً. Then surely it will be prohibited for them for 40 years. They go astray on earth. Now when they went astray, or the wander years, a lot of scriptures and some of the Muslims, they use that they were lost completely in the Sinai desert. They were already in the eastern side of the Jordan River. How did they jump all the way to the Sinai desert? They were in the eastern side of the Jordan River, and when they, in the wander year, they went between what we call today Jordan and Sinai. And as soon as they reach Sinai, they say, oh, we are lost, we gotta go back, because they had to stay close to the Jordan River so that when the wander years are over, they are able to enter the holy city. And after that, Haroon alayhi salam died, and Musa alayhi salam died in the wander years, and the prophethood went to Yosha bin Nun alayhi salam, who was Fata Musa alayhi salam, and the story with him in the Surah Al-Kahf. And Yosha bin Nun managed in the year of 1186 BC, before Christ, together with the 12 leaders of the 12 tribes of the Israelites, to enter Jericho, Ariha. They were not able to enter Jerusalem, which was 35 kilometers away. Now Jericho is directly under the south of the Jordan River, north of the Dead Sea, on the eastern side of current Palestine right now. But over here, in their scriptures, they say they defeated the Canaanites. They did not mention the Philistines because they were saying they were huge people. And after that, the Israelites, again, they disobeyed Yosha bin Nun, and they disobeyed the prophets that came after that. And they had this tabut, this kafir or chest, where it had the remnants of Musa and Haroon, and some of the scriptures where the Torah was written. Now the original scriptures were 10 scriptures. When the Sharia of Musa alayhi salam came down, when they were in the Sinai desert, it was 10 scriptures. And after Musa alayhi salam, the Israelites in the wander years, they lost 8, and 2 of them left, and that's what was in the chest. At that time, Jalut army came and took the kafir from them. Now that's a huge thing to the Israelites, because they were feeling like it's a good luck charm for them. To take that away from them, they took, that means Jalut and his army, or the Canaanites, took away the Jewish identity, or the Israelites' identity. But still they were scared to fight them, and they rather indulged themselves in lust, desires, and so they weren't able to struggle and fight for that chest to get back. So they chose to stay in humility, thinking that living in humility is cheaper. Therein understand when you lose your pride, your honor, your humanity, and above all for the Israelites, they lost mercy in their hearts, like Allah describes in the Quran, that their heart became so hard, harder than a rock. So they lost mercy in their heart. And that's what makes any nation or any person a valuable nation or persons. But they lost all that, so they weren't qualified. So living in humiliation or humility caused further more damage than living in pride and honor. But they had to learn the hard way. So years go by, and now we are at the 1100 BC. Allah sends a prophet to them. According to the Torah and the Bible, and some of the Mufassirin use that same name of prophet. God knows what's the name of the prophet, but they claim it's Prophet Samuel, alayhi salam. Regardless of the name of the prophet, they asked him that we need a king so that we regain our glory. Just like the Muslims these days, they ask him for Al-Mahdi and Salah ad-Din to regain their glory and to get Palestine back. The Israelites back then, they asked their prophet to send them a king to regain their glory. So their prophet said, but you've been disobedient to Allah and to the prophets, and Allah is going to put you through a purging process, عملية تمحيص, a test to test you before you are qualified to fight in His way. So they said, why we are not going to fight in His way? He said, suppose He prescribes on you. They said, we'll fight. Just like I tell you right now, we have a fundraiser tomorrow, and you say, yeah, let's go for fundraiser. We're all going to pledge and we all going to pay money. And when it comes time to do the pledges, everybody pledges. When it's time to pay the money, nobody shows up. Right? Just like that, they were the same way. When time came, the order came to them to fight, the majority of them chickened out. So that was the first test that was given to them. That's the test of courage. And they failed, most of them failed that first test. It was estimated at that time that the Israelites were anywhere between 500,000 to 800,000. So the majority of them, as soon as the order came for them to fight, they chickened out. So they failed the first test. Comes the second test, is the loyalty toward Allah. So their prophet said, وقال لهم نبيهم إن الله قد بعث لكم طالوت ملكا قالوا أن يكون له الملك علينا ونحن أحق بالملك منه ولم يؤت سعة من المال قال إن الله اصطفاه عليكم وزاده بسطة في العلم والجسم والله يؤتي ملكه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. And their prophet said to them, surely Allah has already sent forth Talut for you as a king. They said, however, could he have kingship over us, and we have more right than him of kingship, and he has not brought affluence of wealth. He said, their prophet said, surely Allah has elected him above all of you, because he has increased him incisively in knowledge and figure, and Allah brings his kingship to whomever he decides. Allah is ever embracing, ever knowing. So they refused the order again. They refused to obey the order of their prophet, who is revealed to him that Talut was chosen as a king for them. Okay, it's not from his head, I want to pick Talut. Talut was revealed to him to be picked. And the reason they refused is because, as I said, the Israelites were 12 tribes, and all their history, all their kings and prophets came from the tribe of Yehuda, one of Yaqub alayhi salam kids. And Talut was not from the Yehuda tribe. And because of that, they refused him as a king. So their prophet said, Inna ayata mulkihi, so he wants to prove to them that Allah, this is Allah's order. So he said, وقال لهم نبيهم إن آية ملكه أن يأتيكم التابوت فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة إن في ذلك لآية لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. That his sign, the sign of Talut being a king, is a sign of his authority, is that there shall come to you the Ark of the Covenant, which was stolen from them, the one I just mentioned about, with an assurance therein of security from your Lord, and the relics left by the family of Moses and family of Haroon, carried by angels, in this symbol for you if you indeed have faith. So they saw the miracle before their eyes. They saw the angels took the chest from Jalut army, or the Canaans at that time, and saw the angels carrying it and putting it in front of Talut house. And they checked it to see is all the things that Musa alayhi salam and Haroon alayhi salam left is there, and they saw it all in there, and they still didn't believe it, and they still decided to stay disobedient, and they did not want to fight with Talut. At that time, most Mufassirin and historians said that the army dropped to 80,000. Remember, we said could be possibly the Israelites were about 800,000. So 80,000 is about 10% of them, right? So their army dropped down after the second test considerably. Now they go through the third test. And remember, this is a Persian process, because Talut does not want to go and fight Jalut with a huge army without making sure that he's got real men behind him. فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيده فشربوا منه إلا قليلا منهم. Then as soon as Talut departed with the soldiers, he said, surely Allah will be trying you with a river, and that's the Jordan River. So whoever drinks of it, then he is not of me, and whoever does not taste it, then surely he is of me, except him who scoops up only a scoop in his hand. Then they drank of it, except a few of them. So they all went chaotic, because they were tired, they were thirsty, and they indulged themselves in drinking from the river, except few, and that few were 4,000. Everybody else dropped out. Only the 4,000 only took one scoop. So obviously they were not disciplined enough, and they did not obey his order, and that's why Talut did that test to test them. Are they going to obey orders when the time comes for the battle? So now with the 4,000, they continue with their journey, and now they see visibly Jalut and his army. Now the fourth test comes with determination and strong will. He wants to test their determination and strong will. فلما جاوزه, when he passed the Jordan River, هو والذين آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقوا الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. Then as soon as they passed over the Jordan River, he, Talut, and the ones who believed with him, they said, we have no capability today against Jalut and his soldiers, against Goliath and his soldiers. But the ones who expect that they will be meeting Allah said, how often a little community has overcome much larger community with the permission of Allah, and Allah is with the patient. And here is the key is Allah with the patient. So as soon as Jalut army or Goliath army became visible to the Muslims at that time, the Israelites were the Muslims of that time. As soon as they became visible, most of the 4,000 soldiers got scared, because they saw a well-equipped army and they are ill-equipped, and they saw giants and they are medium-sized, and a lot of them were scared. Here, Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, through Sahabi al-Bara ibn Azib, and that hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, said the number of soldiers that at this test, the number of soldiers that stayed with Talut are the same number of soldiers, of Muslims, that fought in the Battle of Badr. And from history we know in the Battle of Badr we had 310 to 313. So look, we started with 80,000 and we dropped all the way now to 310 from the Jalut army, Talut army. But the hadith also describes, and the Sahabi after that, but each one of the 310 is equivalent to 1,000 soldiers of Jalut army. They were the best of the Israelites. And they are the ones who had the courage, loyalty to Allah, extreme discipline to their commanders, and very extremely strong will. And they made the famous dua that we all do or say all the time, وَلَمَّا بَرَزُوا لِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ قَالُوا رَبَّنَا افْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. When they advanced to meet Goliath and his forces, they prayed, "Our Lord, pour out patience on us and make our steps firm. Help us against those that reject faith." Ask Allah for forgiveness. We'll continue with the remaining of that. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Allah is the most forgiving, the most merciful. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صاحب الخلق العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So now at this point, Talut has asked from the 310 remaining, who is the one who's going to be assigned to kill Jalut. At that time emerges a shepherd who was 16 years old, and that is Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. He was known to be very good in slingshots. Imagine somebody going to fight Jalut army. I want you to put in your head that the Jalut army, this is the superpower back then, and Dawood with a slingshot, and he wasn't a prophet yet, and he was 16 years old with a slingshot. He said, "I will kill Jalut with a slingshot." So he said, if anyone who kills Jalut, I will have him marry my daughter. So, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فهزموهم بإذن الله وقتل داوود جالوت وآتاه الله الملك والحكمة وعلمه مما يشاء ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين. By Allah's will, they defeated them. So after all this story, it's two words, they defeated them. The Muslims at that time, which are the Israelites, defeated Jalut army. And the Canaans at that time were worshipping, their own little gods, whatever they were worshipping. And David killed Goliath. And Allah gave him power, again here power and wisdom. So why Allah picked Talut? Because of knowledge, and he was strong in size. And the same thing, Dawood, power and wisdom. So obviously, two things are required here we learn from the Quran, and we learn from the Rasul ﷺ and the Sahaba after them. Two main things important for any leader. Knowledge, and to be good in good health, and disciplined in exercises and good health. Unlike the leaders we have these days, they become leaders and they are 50% in high school and colleges, and they are not able to stand or make a sentence, one full sentence. They are ignorant, and they are our leaders. So, but subhanallah. So at that time, it was around, still around 1100 BC, King Talut wins the battle, and have the kingdom of, but he does not build the temple yet. The years go by, and he dies in the year 1000 BC. Starts a little conflict between Dawood alayhi salam and the son of Talut. Then Dawood alayhi salam resolves the issue pretty quick. 5 years later, by the year 995, he establishes the first state of Israel in the land of Canaan, in Jerusalem, and builds the temple. And it wasn't all over Palestine, historic Palestine or the land of Canaan. The western area of Palestine, or the ones by the Mediterraneans, were not under the rule of the state of Israel back then. Now the reason I'm talking about this story is not only that we're talking about knowledge and power are important for any leadership, and the importance of patience also for any nation, and the importance of courage, loyalty to Allah, and discipline. There is a misunderstanding over here of Palestinians. In the year 1300, it's the same around the BC we're talking now. It's around the same year that the message to Prophet Musa alayhi salam came. These people came from Crete and other European countries, and they were trying, because they ran away from their country because they had a drought, and they came to the land of Canaan and Egypt, and they were trying to invade Egypt even. But they didn't succeed, and Ramses III made a deal with them to go to a town in the southern land of Canaan called Palest. And they stayed there. They did not stay there. They moved north, and they completely melted and integrated into the Canaans, who were the majority, and the Jebusites, the Yebusiyin, who built Jerusalem in the year 2600 BC. So the Arabs were there from way before, right after the ancient Egyptians started. That civilization is older. Right after that, the Canaan civilization started in the land of Canaan. So they completely integrated. There is no evidence of these Aryan Philistines. They called them Philistines, but there is no evidence of them that they built a settlement, or they built a civilization, or they built any kind of culture, because they completely melted into the Canaans. So when people use this story, and unfortunately some Muslims even use this story, that the Muslims have no right to this land, or the Arabs have no right to this land, they say because David annihilated the Philistines. At the time that battle took place in 1100 BC, the Philistines didn't exist. And I'm talking about the Aryan Philistines. They didn't exist. What existed are the Arabs, the Canaan. Now the name Palestine came back when the Greeks came in 5 BC, and they gave the name of Palestine or Palestine to the Canaans, to the land of Canaan, to the Arabs, okay, in memory of the Philistines who came from Crete, okay? But they did not mean to give that name to show that these are the Aryan Philistines. These are the Arab Philistines, okay? And they are totally different. Even when their own archaeologists, and one of them famous, his name Isra'il Finkelstein, who's still a professor of archaeology in the University of Tel Aviv, they couldn't find any evidence of these Aryan Philistines in the land of Canaan. They are, until today, they are finding evidences of Canaans and Jebusites, the Yebusiyin, who built Jerusalem in Palestine. Okay? But the only reason that the Jews and the Christians, some of them, not all of them, because the Eastern Christians do not say that, they use that because it's an identity. It's a religious identity to them. If they don't say that, they lose the purpose of saying why we own this land. Okay, I can understand when Jews and Christians say this is not a Muslim land, okay, or not an Arab land. But when a Muslim says that, it's a sign of ignorance and illiteracy, because if their own theologists, their own archaeologists and scientists say there is no even archaeological proof of any Jewish ancestry or artifact in that land, because altogether they stayed only 290 years and not consecutive in the land of Canaan. Okay, whereas the Arabs had been there since 6,000 years. Right after the ancient Egyptians came the Canaans, or the Arabs, in the land of Canaan. And then the Muslims after that, from Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, until the Crusaders, that's about 400 years. And then after the Crusaders, up until World War I, when the Arabs helped the British to take over, to defeat the Ottoman in Palestine and took over Palestine, that's altogether about 1200 years under the rule of Muslims. How is a Muslim go and say there is no rights for Muslims for Palestine? And that took place about a couple of weeks ago in Masjid Bridgeport. Okay, when somebody came to Sheikh Hassan Abnar and the people over there, telling them that there is no rights for Arabs or Muslims in Palestine. So Sheikh Hassan Abnar had to do this lecture to them, historically, to explain to them the historic rights for Muslims and Arabs in general for that land. That the Palestinians we talking about is totally different than the Palestinians they saying. When we say Palestinians, we are referring, and as a matter of fact, the Roman Empire in the 2 AD, when they came, they did not only give the name of Palestine or the Palestine to the land, they even made coins with the land of Canaan being for the Palestinians. And they are referring to the Arabs. They are not referring to the ones that came from Crete. And the evidences they got from there is from ancient Egyptian writing, from ancient Assyrian writing, from ancient Greek and Babylonians and Persians. This is where they got all their information from. And yet, it's disgusting when you hear of some Muslims denying the right of Palestine being a Muslim land. They need to go and educate themselves first before they utter of nonsense like that. And at the end, I'd like to remind you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had asked us to send our prayers on Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam when he said in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آل نبينا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين سبحان ربنا رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.